What are the practical implications for folks that are involved in sports broadcasting? What should they be looking to do? How can they begin to capture and deliver these new experiences for consumers?
We've seen cameras start to roll into the marketplace that are capable of high dynamic range. Some capable of 4K high dynamic range, some capable still of HD high dynamic range. What's something we need to be mindful of is everyone just spent a ton of money up converting their stadiums to be able to do HD, and now some of them have started converting the stadiums to 4K, and they're being told, good news, throw all that away, buy all new equipment, and change out to high dynamic range. It's not really a practical way to get there. I think what we're going to start seeing is kind of a transition effect. How do I take a stadium with 40 cameras and convert 2 to high dynamic range and still provide a high dynamic range experience? So there has to be technology that allows that kind of transition phase to help accelerate the transition. If it's as straightforward as drop everything and start over, it's going to be a long road ahead of us to actually start to take advantage of these new technologies. So paying attention to how you transition into this new phase or into whatever comes next is going to be very key to success.
So this idea of a migration path, a gradual migration path, as opposed to a violent forklift shift, is important. The flip side of that would be backwards compatibility, right? That you'll have to have on the content creation, as well as, I suppose, on the content consumption, the ability to support the technologies that haven't moved forward. What are your thoughts? Let's talk on both sides on how we can move forward in a migratory, evolutionary manner, and then let's talk about the same thing on the consumption side. But what do you see happening there?
So absolutely right. I mean, when we see these new cameras roll in the marketplace with new features, they have certain limitations because there are technological limitations that come about. So some of the things like being able to shoot a higher frame rate may have to be compromised if you want to shoot 4K or if you want to shoot HDR in 4K. So because of these trade-offs, people will have to make intelligent decisions about, well, do I want to be able to shoot something in slow motion, or do I want to be able to get 4K? And if you have to make a trade-off decision, it makes it very difficult to do a broadcasting event. So what we're kind of seeing is, how do you either, one, stick with the production that you have now and upconvert the entire thing, or two, intermix different types of camera sources. So how do you take, if you had that 40 cameras, and you wanted to upconvert those 2, or you wanted to have 2 in HDR, how do you take the other 38 and bring them up to the same level? That way you can do an HDR production and take advantage of what those 2 brand new cameras can offer. And so how do you mix these things together in a production environment is becoming very key to the conversation.
Interesting. Is that require a new set of skill sets on the part of broadcasters or stadium managers or whoever is that is involved in making these decisions? Are there new skill sets that need to be acquired?
It definitely depends on how it's approached. If one of the examples I gave you was do everything after master control, just upconvert an entire standard dynamic range production. At that point, your production would be all standard dynamic range and all the skill sets would be exactly the same. I think that the challenge for the marketplace is how do you keep the same people working on the same thing and being able to produce an even better result without changing their job description completely or multiplying the number of people by 2. In a mastering environment where you're able to work on nonlinear content like movie content or television shows, you can take your time. In a linear environment like live sports, you have to do it all right then and there, which means any duplication of what you have to do as a deliverable means duplication of personnel and duplication of equipment. So how do you get away from that problem so that way it doesn't cost you twice as much to do your production is going to become as important as how do you distribute it in one fashion without having to create multiple different masters.